In order to find your new self, you really have to let go of your old self. Now, this is like a lesson I'm learning in real time. I would say this is one of the most painful lessons. And what I mean by that is this, is that at least for me, in this kind of stage of self-discovery and finding myself again and trying to understand, like, okay, what do I do now? Like, what are my next steps? The temptation there is to use parts and pieces of my old life to almost rebuild or build something from those scraps. Think about it like this. It's like you're trying to go somewhere. You need a car, but the car's engine isn't really functioning. In order to build the engine, what do? At least for me, the temptation is look for little scraps and parts and pieces just laying around, right? Maybe I can just force it together. Maybe I can just make something work. But that's not the season of life that I'm in. That's not the season of life you're in either. We're not here to just piecemeal things together. We're not here just to kind of make a hodgepodge of a new life. That's not the season. That's not the stage that you're at. That's not the stage that I'm at. But it's hard to do because why? In a lot of ways, it feels like, at least for me, that's all I have. All I have are these collections of experiences and skills, even of ways I know how to be in this world, right? I know how to be a marketer in this world. In some ways, I know how to be a founder or an entrepreneur. In some ways, I know how to be a certain type of a corporate person. I know how to write in a certain way. I know how to do things in a certain way. And people have told me that those things are good. They provide value. They're different. They're meaningful. And so there is a temptation to bring all of that with me and try to make something work. But again, that's not the stage of life that I'm in. That's not the season. That's not the best thing for me. And like I mentioned in my last video, I've been, kind of rereading the Bible again, just to see if there's any answers. This is not really an answer by any means, but in this one passage I was reading, it talks about how you can't bring a new piece of cloth and try to patch an old garment because they're stretched differently, and ultimately it's just going to break and you're going to be left with a hole. And I remember reading that thinking, man, that is such a really accurate description of what I'm trying to do, right? There's where I am today, and there's the future ahead of me. What I want to do is bridge the gap between today and the future with these old experiences, with these old identities that in a lot of ways worked well for me. But the truth is, I don't think that the old really has a space in the new. Not just that, I think what I'm doing is I'm holding so tightly to these old experiences, these skills, these identities, because I'm scared. I'm scared that walking into this new season of life, I'll be left with nothing if I don't have these things. If I don't hold tightly to these old parts of me, then I feel a little naked moving forward. I feel a little defenseless. I feel a little unprepared, ill-equipped moving forward. But the thing is, holding tightly to these old parts of me makes it so that if something new does appear in front of me in this next season, in this new opportunity of life, because I'm holding so tightly, I won't be able to pick up the new thing. And I think that's kind of the work that has to be done, that I'm trying to do right now, which is, how do I move forward with all of this excitement and hope I have, at the same time with the fear of letting go of my old self or my old habits, my old experiences and skills, trusting that there will be new, maybe even better things for me to pick up on as I move forward. And I don't know if you guys are kind of struggling with the same thing, and I don't even know if my metaphors make sense, but In a lot of ways, I think a lot of successful people that have kind of gone before also have had similar experiences. Like, this person is pretty controversial, but I know like Conor McGregor, he's now, one of the most successful athletes, fighters of all time. But before his success, he was actually really poor. He couldn't barely make ends meet. He was struggling. But one of the things that I remember reading about that he did was he had to let go of his own view of his former self. This poor kid that couldn't do things, that didn't have discipline, that couldn't fight, that wasn't successful. He had to let that go in order to make space for the new self. But the thing is that when we're thinking about who we want to be, there is a big gap between where we are now, the experiences we've had to date, and the person we want to be. And for actually a little while, maybe a long while for some of us, that gap is going to feel really painful because there is a moment or season even of transition where you will be left feeling like you don't have anything really. One of the ways I felt this the strongest was when I first started to go to the gym. When I first started to go to the gym, I was much heavier, right? I was a fat person. I was a fat guy. I was weak too. And I knew that. And I knew that the moment I walked into the gym. But I also visualized a version of me that was stronger, that was confident, that could lift heavy things. Those two things are true, me being fat and weak and a version of me being strong and lean. But the distance between those two people was months of time, was hours of training, was seeing the scale not move. It was frustrating. It was sometimes hopeless. It wasn't a good feeling necessarily. But in order for me to get to where I am today, to have achieved a lot of the success I have in weight loss, I had to let go of feeling like the fat, weak person. I had to stop behaving like the fat, weak, undisciplined person and take on this new identity, or at least give space for it, even though I didn't see the results for a long time. And I kind of feel the same way moving into the next season of my life, which is I don't even have the vision for who I'm going to be. At least with the weight loss, I could see maybe a skinnier, stronger version of myself. But in this season, I don't even know where I'm headed. I don't even know who I'm trying to be. But I do know that the lesson remains and it applies today, which is you do have to let go of your old self to make room for what's to come. So I hope for those of you that are, maybe in a moment of transition like me, or feeling lost, feeling confused, maybe you're also like me in your 30s. You feel like you wasted your 20s. Maybe you feel like you're not where you wanted to be, where you imagined yourself to be. I think the next step isn't, okay, let me figure out where I'm going. It's not really let's figure out the destination. And then the next step, at least the one I'm taking, is who am I? What am I not letting go of my past self? What am I holding really tightly to? Who am I holding on to? A past version of me, an old identity. What doesn't serve me any longer? I think starting to ask those questions might make room for more discovery, more self-awareness, even more possibilities. So I hope that helps. Like I said, I'm so excited for this, and there's a lot of work to be done. So let's do it together. All right. Peace, y'all.